Dun, 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 dun. Say it with me. Very good afternoon to you, Hexaco. I hope you feel like a winner today, because I sure do. For over a year, the BS sham case from the SEC has been putting a couple clouds in the sunshine a little bit. However, I think we might have opened up a can of ass whooping, if I may say so myself. Welcome to the show. The day afterwards, we're going to break it down. SEC versus Richard Hart, super winning, hardcore, like not even a, we're going to get into it. I'm very excited to talk about this stuff. We got the nuclear herbs. We got the nuclearist of the herbs on the show to break this down with us as well. Oh, there was some pumps. There was some green candles. They feel like they're partially there at least. But I hope everyone's taking a moment just to breathe, let it soak in. Last night I couldn't. Like I was kind of like, okay, let me get some rest. The next day I'll just need some time to let it all soak in too. But so much amazing stuff happened in the ecosystem. Again, like, are you not entertained? And we're gonna break it all down. Get your question in the chat. We're gonna go for a little bit and see what else Nuclear Herb has to talk about on this. But oh, I like that Hex token. It's great stuff. Welcome back to the show, Nuclear Herbs. How's it going, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Been a little bit busy the last day and a half or so, but feeling pretty good.
Have you had some coffee? I've got a nice cup myself.
I should, right?
It's one of those things. It tends to, you know what? I don't think coffee is obsolete at this point. Today, it doesn't even need to have coffee. We got enough energy to power several thousand green candles. I certainly hope so. It feels amazing. How are you doing? How's I know it's been a whirlwind. I know you've been talking about it for a bit at this point, but has it sunk in that, wow, that thing that now looks obvious in hindsight actually happened? Like, we were victorious. We did beat the SEC. And
yeah, how often does that happen, right? Where somebody beats the SEC clean. Like, this wasn't a partial win like Ripple was, where this was a clean 100% win, and I don't know, man. It feels really, really good, and it feels validating that that we knew he was right all along. We knew he designed things the way they were supposed to be done. We knew that he had made all the right choices when it came to just things that he did in with respect to putting up his websites and designing things and whatever. And the court basically validated all of that in her order at one point or another. I'm sure we'll go through them. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've seen that from Brett there. That's pretty solid.
Yeah. Speaking of rare, yeah, 180 cases, 88% settled, 14 cases, only 7% dropped, 10 cases, 5% dismissed by judges. Maybe we can kick it off there for a moment too. What does it mean to be dropped by the SEC versus dismissed by the judge? We know the settled part, but like, how much of a bigger, how much else does it matter that it's actually dismissed by the judge?
That's actually pretty significant, because if the SEC agrees to withdraw a claim or stop an investigation or whatever they want to do, if leadership changes and they're still within the statute of limitation, they can go right back and refile it. If you have a case dismissed like this by the court, once the time for amending the complaint goes, and it's silly to even suggest that if they're not going to amend the complaint, they're not going to file an appeal. So, and I don't think they have enough to amend the complaint. So I think realistically, this thing's done at the 20-day mark.
Wow.
But it's and then they can't ever bring it back. Those claims are dead forever. So.
Speaking of that, I really enjoyed this meme.
Good for him.
They threw Hexo and Elon in there too. I love it.
He's got to feel good about this. Yeah. He knew he was right. He knew he was right all along. His attorneys knew they had the right side of this case the whole time. What a feather in the cap for David Kirk and Michael Lifted, right?
Yeah, shout out to the Chad legal team over there. That's there. We definitely. I mean, again, that's what I start off with too. In hindsight, it looks obvious. I mean, I think to a lot of people during this entire time, it's like, yeah, this has totally got a really good chance of getting dismissed or dismissed partially. What were we even like? What was coloring this before? Was it red candles? Was the previous administration like? What ever even put doubt that we wouldn't, put this, sham case away?
Well, the SEC, starts off pretty much every securities case with a, as a minus 100 favorite, right? So, if they come in and say if the biggest securities regulator on the planet comes in and says these are securities, then you kind of have to take them seriously as the judge, right? I mean, you have to give them, like, they wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't true, type of thing, maybe you have to go through and do all the due diligence, but your first read on that, your first gut instinct, your first impression is generally going to be that they know what they're talking about, which is what makes it really hard for defendants in securities cases to actually get any traction. He just happened to have the right case.
Yeah, and a very unique case. I mean, a lot of the details. I mean, we've seen the declaration from Kyle Barr as well, and a lot of that come out super interesting. Just learning about. I mean, it's basically like a white paper on Hex on the products, kind of like a fly on the wall type of deal as well. Was that something that was released like a week or two ago? Is it?
What's that?
The declaration. Yeah.
Oh no, that came out in August last year when it was filed. It was one of the exhibits to the SEC's response.
So why did it come up recently? What was it? I thought it came up recently.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
I've never seen that before. Maybe okay. Well,
it's in there. If you dig through it, it's in there. I remember reading it, and my first impression was something along the lines of, "Wow, that's all. That's all they got." Like, I mean, if you're relying on a declaration like that to establish jurisdiction, then you have a question. You have a question as to whether or not you have jurisdiction, because there was nothing particularly interesting in that in Barr's declaration. That there's nothing damaging, to Richard in it. He just basically laid out what happened, and it almost looks like he wrote it himself. It doesn't look like the SEC did a particularly decent job writing it for him, if that's what happened.
Where did that come from, by the way? Just for people to understand.
Go to the if you can find the SEC's response, and that was filed on August 22nd last year. In court listener, let me see if I can find it real quick.
Maybe if you can find it, you probably find it quicker than I can. Shoot me. I'll put it in here. Shoot me a message with the link, and I'll pull it up.
If you go to, where was it? August. I think it was filed. Everything was filed August 22nd last year. Yes. Affidavits and declarations in support. It should be. It should be number 51, and it's got like 8 exhibits. Let's see which one it is. Oh, hold on a second. That's Richard's filing. Let's see if the...
I see 53 is affidavit declaration. Kyle Barr here. Is this
53. There we go. I think that's it. Yep, that's it.
Climate declaration. Oh, that's Derek Kleiman. I've not seen that either. Okay, declaration of Kyle Barr. Wow, I should actually click on these things more often. Yeah, some reason it came up recently, and then it was, why? Because there was a what's his name? Jardo did a AI like reading of it. And
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he did like a AI thing, and I was like, whoa, where did this come from? I didn't even see this. And then I saw it was dated way back then, but I hadn't seen it till then, so I was wondering why it came up. There's the Barr declaration. There's apparently another one as well, but Derek Kleiman. Wow, I kind of want to so these declarations in general, how did they even come up? Well,
you need them. The SEC needed to support their motion When they put something out there, saying that this is what Richard did, or this is what he said at some time. You have to have some support for that. You just can't put it out there as a blind statement and have it stick. So you do those in the form of declarations. You do that at the motion to dismiss stage very, kind of more rarely. You see it all the time at motion for summary judgment. That's how motions for summary judgment are decided. They're decided mostly on, affidavits or declarations and in support of whatever evidence you're trying to convince the judge of. So that's kind of where this comes from. You're not really supposed to look at things outside of the pleadings in a motion for summary, in a motion to dismiss. So it's there's an argument that it's actually improper to consider it, but it's fine. I mean, it's hard to complain about anything right now, given the fact that we just won everything we wanted.
Captain Insano got a water boy.
Yeah,
I want to get that meme of like, hey, can I put a can of whoop ass, Captain Insano, and then the water boy scene when he like charges and like this kind of Richard face on one of those.
Yeah,
and yeah. Anyways, shout out to the water boy movie. It's a classic that people probably watch these days. Yeah, motion dismiss. What do you want to start with? Like, what is, I guess, how do we frame this in a way that lets us get through and like really let's information.
Let's start with the basics of it, right? The motion to dismiss. When a judge is evaluating the motion to dismiss, it has to accept all the factual statements in the complaint as if they were true. I mean, they haven't been proven yet, right? So you just have to, but you're required to accept them as true for purposes of analyzing the motion to dismiss. So any inferences, any reasonable, way it can be interpreted has to be, the SEC gets the benefit of the doubt with respect to everything in a motion to dismiss. That not the case later on in a motion for summary judgment, but it is the case for motions to dismiss. So what essentially happens is, like, even though we know, you and I and everybody else knows that certain facts in there were not true. I mean, clearly PulseX is not launched on the Ethereum network. We know that is a fact that was put into the SEC's complaint, and it actually made it into her decision, right, because she quoted it. It's not really, didn't really matter, but it is for the purposes of evaluating the motion. She has to give the SEC any reasonable, benefit of the doubt. So that's why you see a lot of things in the decision that are like, hey man, that's just not true. That's not what happened. Or that's, but yeah, we get that. We understand that. That's just kind of what she has to put in for the factual basis of her motion, because everything has to be looked at in the light most favorable to the SEC for the purposes of this particular motion. And with that said, you understand why the burden is so high on a defendant to try to get something dismissed, because your opponent is getting the benefit of the doubt with respect to everything they put in their complaint. So to actually win a motion to dismiss, this is the reason why they're very rarely granted. To win a motion to dismiss, you have to basically show that it really doesn't matter what they put in their complaint. They can prove every single thing in it, and it's still not going to get them to where they're going. And the court recognized that in a couple of different snippets in this decision, and said, basically, it doesn't even matter what test I use. SEC is going to lose this either way, this claim either way. It doesn't matter what, whichever way I look at it, the SEC can't win this. They didn't put enough facts in. They didn't do whatever they're supposed to do. It was it's a kind of a beatdown. And when your complaint can't even hold up to a motion to dismiss, you didn't do a very good job evaluating your case or writing a complaint, or both.
Yeah, and it just seems like it is one of those, like, it takes 10 times the effort. When somebody tells a lie, it takes 10 times the effort to undo that, to get back on the side of it. Yeah, like it still feels like this too. Oh, you're going to charge this person with this thing. We're going to write up all this stuff full of inaccuracies, full of things. And that's stuff we talked about before. It's like, okay, well, they can amend it, and it doesn't all have to be, doesn't mean it's going to get dismissed because this piece and that piece is inaccurate. But then the biggest piece you always talked about too, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also always the personal jurisdiction piece, which was also the strongest claim, and the first one they always brought up in the motions to dismiss and all these pieces. And for this, not only did they dismiss dismiss all the claims, not partially, all the claims for two pieces, jurisdiction and failure to state a claim. The second one, I think the first one, I think we understand a little bit better than the second one. What does the second one actually mean? Like, could they just not even put something together that made him look like he did something wrong?
Yeah, that basically what it means is, let's say that you've got 5 elements of a claim, like I don't know, like just pick any claim, some kind of negligence claim. Like let's make it real easy. You have a duty, you have a breach of that duty. You have, the breach of your duty caused an accident, and then you have damages to the other side. So it's real simple. Like you just basically, it's 4 parts. All you got to do is apply 4, a fact to each one of those parts, put it in your complaint and say, he had a duty to stop at the red light. He didn't stop at the red light. He hit my car. I got injured. I had damages and whatever. So it's real simple. You can write a 1-page negligence, complaint like that. What it means when you fail to state a claim that upon which relief can be granted, which is a 12b-6, it basically means you forgot or you didn't have facts to go to each element of that claim. Like either you forgot to put in the fact that you were damaged, or you forgot to put in the fact that he had a duty to you to not run a red light, or some factual element was missing from that claim, so that even if he proved everything else, it still doesn't get him there. So we're not going to let you try and prove everything else, because it's just a giant waste of the court's time. Because even if you prove it all, you still can't get your relief you're asking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And wow, there's so many different pieces on this too. I mean, that's interesting. The other one that I just came across here as well. The SEC failed to respond to Hart's challenge to the SEC's purported alter ego theory regarding Hex, PulseChain, PulseX. At oral argument, the SEC conceded that it failed to respond to this argument, that the alter ego claims were not part of this theory of why the court would have personal jurisdiction. Were the oral arguments a game winner on this?
They were, yeah. When the SEC, if you bring something up in a motion and the other side fails to respond to it at all, the court can basically accept that as you giving up on that argument, if you don't even try to respond to it at all. So this was addressed pretty early on in the hearing, at the motion to dismiss hearing, where the court basically said, are you giving up on this argument, basically? And the SEC initially said no, and then they agreed, and then whatever, but they still didn't respond to anything in their pleadings regarding the Richard saying you can't, this alter ego theory is bullshit. And so they urged the court to consider that claim abandoned, and the court did, because they have that option. I think if they had said something like at the hearing, like, so you've given the judge some reason why they wanted to keep it in, and just said, we had a page limit here, Judge, we just couldn't fit it in there, or we forgot, or we, whatever. And they, and they said, but we didn't think we needed to, because it was this obvious, and we wanted to
look at him twerk. Look at the guy.
Something, yeah, like if they wanted to do something to salvage that alter ego theory argument, they could have done it, but they didn't. So the court just, the court did what courts do. They just said, well, if you're not going to respond to it, I'm not going to consider it important enough to continue. So it's gone.
Well, why was alter ego important in this? Why was that important enough for it to even be brought up here?
Just because she wanted it's important enough to dispose of properly in the ruling, so you don't have a loose end somewhere. So even though that's why it's in a footnote too, because it's not really relevant to her decision, she just wanted to let the SEC know that she was buttoning up that argument and closing it off. So
okay, well, So yeah, what do you want to dive into? There's 30 pages here. What is the critical pieces that people should really like understand of how this happened?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's seen it yet. If you haven't, I hope you have the time to read it. I threw out a thread earlier today about, if she gave the SEC 20 days to essentially see if they can file an amended complaint that would cure all the deficiencies that she noted in the ruling. And she noted a ton of deficiencies in the ruling. So I wanted to go through earlier today and just go through the ruling with a fine-tooth comb and say, this is what she said was deficient. Is there a way that I can see the SEC reasonably curing that deficiency such that they can file an actual amended complaint? And everything I went through that I pulled the string on, this is a great example. Like one of the first things she talks about was the Hex conference, and the SEC obviously had the transcript of the Hex conference. I mean, I believe that they actually use that in there as one of their exhibits in 53, I think. But they either that or Richard provided it. I don't remember. I remember seeing transcripts of stuff of YouTube videos and conferences and whatever. But they went through it with a fine-tooth comb because they wanted to find out if he made any statements that were that they could hook him on jurisdiction, right? And they put in what they could put into the complaint, because you just can't make up stuff in the complaint. You have to support it. So, and either now or eventually you have to support it. But they put in what they had, and it wasn't sufficient. And the court basically said, that's why without more, his presence at a conference, ain't going to do it. So SEC tried to argue that there were, look at all these 10 things that Richard did at all these various times and put them in one basket and say, look how full the basket is, Your Honor. And the judge did what judges really do, is said, this doesn't belong in the basket. This belongs over here. This doesn't belong in the basket. This belongs over here. And we have to look at these things in context alone. And that's why she broke down all of the different paragraphs that the SEC did, all the statements that the SEC made saying, look at what Richard did. He put up a website, okay, fine. Now, how does that translate to personal jurisdiction? It doesn't by itself. It can if Richard was doing business or transacting or whatever, or engaging with people directly through it or whatever, or targeting U.S. investors or something like that. Like if you had put up there like, hey, New Yorkers, we're going to make you rich, buying Hex or something like that. Well, he'd be screwed. But this is not what happened. You just put up an informational type website. She mentions the case called Zippo, and I remember Zippo from law school. That's how old this thing is. I think it was like 97 or 98, back in the very early days when they were still trying to figure out jurisdiction, via website, or what, how much they could actually, what you would have to do in order. Yeah, Zippo right there. What you would have to do in order to obtain jurisdiction over somebody based on a website, because they knew it was going to be an issue over time as more and more and more websites came up and more people did stuff on websites. So Zippo's kind of got this little sliding scale thing where if you just have an informational website that's available to the whole world, you're not getting jurisdiction, period. If you transact business over your website with U.S. customers or whatever like that, yeah, we're absolutely getting jurisdiction. But then, what do you do if there's if you're not transacting business, but it's not just informational, you can interact with it to some degree. That's kind of where things get fuzzy and gray, and that's where judges have to analyze what happens. But here, she basically said, it's more or less a passive website, and that's a term of art in legal. It's passive. It's a passive website. Richard didn't do anything. He didn't talk to people through it. He didn't respond to questions through it. He didn't do anything. It was just, here's the information. Go do what you want with it. And now this is again some of the genius of Richard, where his designs, he must have known at some point, like, when he designed things, like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stay away from this because this will get jurisdiction and this will hook me in the United States and this won't. So I think there's a lot of genius design there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Hexa's security audits, economic audit. Maybe who knows if there was a legal audit when he's like, yeah, lawyers, take a look at this. Do I need to, everything good? Do I need to change anything? It's just gonna, if anything ever comes from it, will I win? And they're like, change this, do this, whatever. And
right. And I think that's, I don't have any doubt that he did. He really thought about this quite a bit and got people to sign off on it, saying this is my legal opinion on it. If you do this, you're clear.
Wow. And then so I think the conference thing it's not like Richard and all the devs came to the US and they put on a seminar where at the end of it you get a contract, you get a personal person, you go in there with like a banker and you sign up with a contract to make an investment, do all these things, and they go from town to town doing that. That's not what happened, right?
Yeah, that would have been a problem.
That sounds like something that needs to be regulated more, if anything, right? Like, but that's not what happened
absolutely.
at all.
This is what happened was Richard basically just showed up at in a virtual conference somewhere, wherever the hell he was at the time. He got online and just talked to people. And if you're not expressly targeting citizens of the United States with your, you have to do something proactively in order to subject yourself to personal jurisdiction. If you see, there's two types of jurisdiction the court talked about, like, there's general jurisdiction and specific jurisdiction. In that ruling, she basically just doesn't even bother discussing general jurisdiction because it doesn't really apply. She just said that, the SEC agrees that it doesn't apply. The way I've heard specific and general described is, specific jurisdiction, you're kind of a guest in somebody's house, right? You just show up once in a while. You may do a few things, and, it may or may not be enough to make you show up in court and answer something in that jurisdiction. General jurisdiction is basically where you just move into the guy's house and you're there, and there's no question that you're not going to be. There's no question that it is a proper forum to drag you into. Right? I mean, specific jurisdiction is a lot harder to get. It's a lot more factually dependent. And if Richard had been living in the United States, we'd have a different story. If Richard had been doing a whole bunch of stuff in the United States, we'd have a different story. But he was very intelligent in the way he designed things and the way he said things and the way he talked about things on stream.
Again, even looking back, I mean, we talked about what they found, like one person in New York or something that used Uniswap to buy Hex, and then Uniswap's in New York office or something, and like the whole thing seemed to be this shoestring. Oh, this kind of connects. Yeah, why not? Like, it didn't even make any sense when it first came out. Like,
yeah, it was pretty poor. I think that at one point, let me see if I can just find it real quick. The judge talked about, I think I might have actually clipped it. Let's see. Yeah. Here, ultimately, I don't know where it is on the page there because I just have a clip of it. Ultimately, the Hex offering received at least 2,371,362 ETH deposits from 21,156 identifiable digital wallets, including deposits from 10 U.S. investors. I mean, like, okay, so you have 10 into 21,156, right? When you're talking about whether something is predominantly foreign or not, and it's your job, SEC, to make sure you have jurisdiction over this guy in the United States. Maybe do a little better job than just finding 10 deeds. Maybe do some chain analysis. Maybe do some IP, analysis or something where a lot of these transactions originated from. But 10 into 21,000 is not really significant in the eyes of a judge here.
Yeah, wouldn't it need to be like half of people or something? Like,
yeah, there's something somewhere in the opinion, I don't remember exactly where, but the judge does discuss if you just control F validators, I think you can find it that way.
Nodes.
Validated.
Individual node of the blockchain. Liabilities incurred when transaction is verified by at least one of the blockchain.
No, that's not it. Maybe scroll down just a little bit there. Now, it's somewhere in there though. She talks about oh yeah, maybe it's in the Baron case here. Yeah, scroll down just a little bit there. The transaction was validated by a network of global nodes clustered more densely in the U.S. than any other country. They found jurisdiction. Oh, they didn't find jurisdiction. They found that the transactions were domestic for that particular reason. And remember, like in this case, she found that there were no domestic transactions alleged, and it was just the SEC showed up and said, "Hey, a bunch of U.S. investors did this, or some U.S. investors sent money." And that's the source of the whole famous now line where she said, where does the blockchain live, right? Because you have to know where those transactions settled. If they didn't settle inside the United States, then they're not domestic transactions. It's really that simple. I'm not sure why the SEC didn't know that. They should have done a whole lot more homework than they did before they filed this complaint. You would think that the amount of time they spent investigating, they would have asked a lot of the right questions, and it just doesn't seem like they did.
Don't worry, Doge is on the case. I think we'll become more efficient.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Wow. I mean, again, looking back, it's like, well, obviously this is not going to work. I keep calling like, why is this? Why was there so many? We can talk about all the people, and there's a huge apology tour happening right now. If you saw this, Cardano guy, I've seen like a few different ones. I tweeted not too long ago. I'm about the apology tour Richard's going to receive after the vindication and all this stuff. And here you have a judge writing up this piece. The case has been dismissed, looking at the merits and actually saying, no, this doesn't make sense. You aren't able to do this. Not just jurisdiction. You're not even able to put together a claim that can hold weight.
Right.
Is this unprecedented? Like, has this happened before?
Oh yeah. No, this kind of stuff actually happens way more than you would think. It's
like a bunch of time gets wasted, time, money, energy, reputational damage.
Yeah, and sometimes just lawyers just aren't really good at their job. So sometimes you get a complaint. Somebody walks into your office and they're like, "I got sued. Here's the complaint." And you look at this and you look at it and you're like, "Really? Like this is horrible work." Or you look at it and you go, "Wow, this is really good work." And you might be in some trouble here. But from the very beginning, when this complaint was filed, it just I'm on record somewhere a whole bunch of times probably saying that it wasn't a very well drafted complaint, and you just kind of know that. Just from looking at enough of them over time, you can see holes in things. You can see where, attack vectors. If you wanted to file a motion to dismiss, this is what I'm going to focus on. This is where they didn't lay out their claim well enough. The fraud claim, I talked about that many times. Like it wasn't laid out properly according to the way the federal rules of civil procedure require you to put out a fraud claim. You just can't say, here's a whole bunch of facts, and somewhere in those facts is if you believe all those things, somewhere in there, I can win a fraud claim. You have to specifically put somebody on notice of the exact thing that they're being charged with. So,
did they try to show her like the peacock photo, the peacock twerk photo? Like, look, obviously he's guilty of something. It's not just bad fashion sense. He's obviously guilty.
Think about how huge that screw up was too, right? They didn't even allege that he did anything fraudulent inside the United States. So every activity that they said he did, he bought this diamond, he bought a car, he spent money on wacky shit or whatever, but every single thing was alleged to have been done outside the borders of the United States. So that's another problem that I'm not sure how the SEC didn't recognize that as a problem either. Like they couldn't find one domestic activity that he did. Not one.
Was
like
it
maybe
literally
he bought
just
the bidet that he installed for his mom with SAC funds. They couldn't find that. Couldn't pull a Home Depot receipt.
Wow. I mean, was it literally, you just think it was an underestimation? They thought, oh, just another scammer in the crypto space. We got admin backing us. We got, oh, they're really going to win. Okay, well, he's going to spend a bunch of money and steal. We're still going to, cream him. We're going to get something out of it. We need that quantity over quality. Like, let's just get it through. And, this guy's probably going to run or something like that. It was literally just like, yeah.
That's exactly what I think happened. I think that they had a mandate to go find everybody and file things against them. And they looked at Richard and didn't take him seriously and didn't really think that this was going to be much of a fight, that he would, that he would cough up a few $1 million and they would get to hang a scalp on the wall. And that was just and I think you can see some of that just because, again, how poorly the complaint was drafted. It's almost like they didn't take it seriously. So, yeah, I think that's what happened, and I think they just miscalculated horribly.
Never underestimate the heart of the champion. Like,
right?
This guy, people do it all the time. I see, I would, thankfully I've fine-tuned my feed, not to be echo chamber as much as just not to see drama and stuff I don't care to engage in. But it's like, how do you look at this guy? And again, I'm sure I'm biased. Been following him since before Hex, since 2017, all that stuff too. But I look at this guy for years and I'm like, he's a winner. He's very smart. He's out to make the world a better place. He's all these things that aren't. There's no way he's going to go down over because SEC thought he bought too many, watches or something.
Right.
And they didn't like the pictures he took. Like, it's not going to happen. So, yeah, it's maybe. Got a ton of questions here. I want to get through a few of them as well. Imagine if Finland SEC sued Richard now. Wonder if it's, I imagine, possible.
I hope it's not fists. I don't want to know what the punishments are for things in Finland. But yikes,
they do things differently over there. No, probably not that. Yeah. Now the SEC is gone, or so now the US is out of the picture on the SEC side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think they made some headway with this argument in the hearing, where you take a company like Binance, and Binance said, we have no location in the world, and so if you want to try to get jurisdiction over us, go, good luck, because we don't have a headquarters anywhere in the world. We don't have anywhere we can be sued, and governments just don't like that. And the U.S. government decided that like, fine, nobody else wants this, we're going to do it. We're going to find servers in the United States, and we're going to tie a domestic securities transaction to you, through these servers in the United States, through a U.S. person, who KYC'd through you or whatever, and then we're going to just claim jurisdiction, and good luck. You can't do anything about it. So, but that's so much different than, does Finland actually have a regulatory body that can regulate the issuance of securities if they want to? Yes, they do. So have they disclaimed this case? No. He's living in Finland. He did all this stuff supposedly in Finland. Who's responsible for regulating securities in Finland? That's somewhere in Finland. It's one of the regulatory bodies there. So that's a huge difference between what you saw in Binance and I think one of the reasons why this court said, you have a much harder hill to climb here, because there is a regulatory body that can do the job. And the SEC doesn't get to step on other countries' toes all the time. I mean, they tried to, obviously, but they got reined in a little bit here.
Do you think that's where the Interpol stuff came from, where it's like, okay, US SEC, they got them on the security stuff. They're going to do that angle. What can we do in Finland? Oh, maybe he didn't. We're gonna assume he didn't pay some taxes or something that whatever other stuff they could make up as well. Is it kind of like this?
Yeah, but It's weird though, because if you look at it, like it's almost counter to if the SEC had a hand in that, which I don't really know. I don't believe. I would find it hard to believe that they actually did, but they would be self-sabotaging, right? Because Finland is saying this sacrifice money is Richard's personal money, and therefore he owes taxes to us on it. Meanwhile, the SEC is saying, hey, wait a minute, this sacrifice money isn't his own personal money, it's project money, and he's basically holding it, because he's got to perform duties to his investors. So if it's not his money, he doesn't owe taxes on it, which is what the SEC's position was. And if Finland's like, oh, it's totally his money, he owes taxes on it, you have two completely diametrically opposed positions there. So I'm not entirely sure that those two bodies would come to some sort of agreement on that, when they're sabotaging each other's positions.
Does this dismissal help anything with that too? Does it shift that, or confuse that position, or is there anything? Can he point to it of like, if that gets addressed at some point, it can be like, okay, yeah, look, SEC case dismissed, and this is some thing.
I mean, he could still probably use that argument, I guess, if he needed to, that the SEC doesn't think it's my money. They think it was raised in connection with this project, and therefore it's not my own money. And the SEC can't, just because the SEC can't do anything about it anymore, doesn't mean that he's not able to use that argument later on in Finland. So it's an interesting proposition. I don't know how that works over there. I have zero idea how the Finnish tax code works. I have no idea what happens in Finland at all. And it's been horribly difficult to get any information out of them, even though I've tried calling and emailing and everybody I can over there. It's difficult.
So this one getting dismissed, I know there's a big dip in the prices, and we've talked about them flooding our bags for years. It getting dismissed, we had the pump and stuff too, but the Finnish case as well. Is it one of those, the things that, I guess you could speculate here as well, but like, are the things that were preventing people from putting money in PulseChain because they were using SEC as a reason not to? Does it have the same effect, or do you think that's the Finnish case is over, having the same kind of shadow? I guess, how would you think about that?
I think the Finnish case is an excuse, not a reason. And I agree with you, Johnny. They're not securities. I'll just leave it at that. But to get back to, if people want to find a reason not to put money in the PulseChain, they can use whatever they want to. And Richard, supposedly punched somebody in the nose, 5 years ago or whatever the case is. That's a great reason for me not to invest in his ecosystem. Really, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Oh my God, a government says that they want more tax money out of the guy. Yeah, well, okay, so you're not going to buy a Tesla? Because every year they tell Elon they want more money out of him. You're not going to buy something off Amazon because they get audited all the time too, and obviously every politician that's hammering on about like how billionaires don't pay enough taxes is like, oh my God, we need to collect more money from these people. Yeah, that's what governments do. If you make money, they want some of it for some reason. They think they're entitled to it. But I don't see any reason why Richard's personal tax matter, whether he owes $82 or 82 million, has anything to do with the ecosystem you built. It's a personal tax matter that, just like anything else, is probably going to get settled for somewhere in the middle of whatever the hell they want and whatever he wants to pay. So, and a simple assault, are you kidding me, man? Like, how many people get punched in the nose every day? Like, they don't wind up on Interpol. Like, it's ridiculous. So
I think that's the connection people are making, is like, okay, SEC, US thinks they're going to lose this case. Finland, go, I got people in Finland, go get them. Like, maybe that's the speculation.
Yeah, I understand that. I just think it's too far of a stretch where I can't connect those dots.
Is that claim to death forever? Oh, go ahead.
We have our own DOJ, right? We have our own IRS. If they thought it was his personal money, U.S. can tax citizens on global income, right? So what's stopping the IRS from saying that instead of going to Finland and saying, hey, maybe collect money from this guy? I don't know. It just seems like a whole lot of unnecessary steps.
Claims are dead forever, but we still have a pulse. Can you explain to on this one? You've talked a little bit about, they got 20 days to make an amendment. Why you don't think that's, likely? But is it just 2 more weeks? Are we still like, okay, give it a couple more weeks and we're finally, this thing's finally dead? Or how do you think about that?
At that point, if and when I don't expect the SEC to file an amended complaint. If the 20 days goes by, it'll be a final judgment entered, and it should be, because there's no personal jurisdiction, it should be a dismissal with prejudice where they can never bring it back up again. I guess theoretically the SEC would have 60 days to appeal that, but if they didn't bother to file an amended complaint, they're not filing an appeal. It's not going to happen.
What happens if SEC update their lawsuit in the next 90? Yeah, okay. Sometimes I read that as, what if there's a new SEC law in the next 19 days?
Yeah. If they want to update it, they have to fix all the deficiencies that the judge pointed out. And as I really tried to take a lot of time and do today, in my thread, I went through and I'm like, this is a particular thing that the judge called them out on. And, you're not going to be able to fix this. Because you can't, this is a great example. The SEC can't go back and change anything Barr did or Hart did or change the nature of their relationship. You can't just make up new facts. They have to be supported. And 20 days in legal world is just not a lot of time. And if they didn't have it by now, they don't have it. So I kind of went through and did the best I could to pull apart each one of those things. Again, the alleged conduct relied on by the SEC occurred entirely out of forum. Well, is Richard? Are they going to be able to go back now and find something that Richard did inside the United States? No, because he wasn't here. He didn't do things inside the United States. He was very careful about showing up here, doing things. They're not going to find some magic diary where Richard describes all the things that he did to target U.S. investors or some nonsense.
This whole time, I just wanted to pull off this thing.
People are not going to come out of the woodwork and just go, "Oh my God, I did all this work with Richard, and he knew I was in New York because he came to the house. Like he rowed a boat into the Hudson and stopped by my house, and we talked about it for days." They don't have it. They don't have the facts. If they did have the facts, they would have put it in the initial complaint. They don't have the facts. So I don't see it. I don't see a reasonable, and don't forget the court, when you put in something like, if the SEC believes in good faith, they can do something. Well, all pleadings, you're required to file all of them in good faith, right? So it's kind of an unnecessary swat at the SEC. In other words, don't come back to me with some bullshit. If you can legitimately put the complaint together in 20 days and, go ahead, good luck to you, but don't come back to me with some half-assed nonsense like you did this time. So,
and just to throw in there, the political winds of friendly administration to crypto probably doesn't encourage coming back with, anything to beat a dead horse type of deal, right?
Right.
Fox Monitor, do you use Lex Machina at all? I'd like to look up Amon's motion stats for custodial access. Just wondering if you did or do.
I don't even know what that is.
So, must be a legal.
I got to go look it up.
Lex Machina. Let's check real quick. Legal analytics provides legal analytics to law firms and companies, enable them to craft successful strategies, wins cases. So it sounds like a.
Oh, it looks like it's part of the West or the Lexus packages. Now I don't use those. I actually, from Arizona, we had when you pay your bar dues every year, you get access to a different legal search product called Fastcase, and that's what I look up everything in. So I don't spend stupid amounts of money on Lexus or Westlaw like some firms do.
Sir, if and when you get that 10,000x, maybe you can just willy-nilly it. Speaking of that, we had some green, we had some candles. Still, I think the last time we posted, I read was something like maybe 15% settled on, or so like that. The moves in, by that, we've seen a lot of monetary policy changes by that way, ink policy as well as Hex in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We've seen some SAC wallet, I believe, was buying PulseX yesterday. I haven't seen a move like that for a while. Things like that, are they, I guess, first question, do you think Richard knew, or his team knew this was coming? And it was like, okay,
I have no doubt that, when I had said that this decision is taking considerably longer than expected, and I think I might have even been on with Maddie back in the Hex conference where we were talking about, if you were going to deny the motion entirely, that only takes a couple of pages and you can just do it. And I would have expected to see it by then. My guess at the time was that we were going to either see a partial or a full. I kind of had my money on a partial because I thought she might, split the baby a little bit, but those things do take up a lot of time, and you have to analyze everything and get it right. If you just deny a motion, you can do it in really one sentence, right? You don't have to really support it, just because you can't really appeal that anyway, right? You just move on to summary judgment and then you go from there. But in a motion to dismiss, you really need to button it up just in case somebody wants to appeal. So that takes considerable amounts of time. And even though I don't think, I think most of the time you would probably see it faster than what we saw. I'm not disappointed. Like if she's going to give me everything I want in a pony, I'll wait another month. I don't care. Let's just get it. Let's get it right. And she thoroughly eviscerated the SEC's complaint, and it was a beautiful thing to see.
Wow. And the second part too, is there anything, so before, we've seen wallets that they may or may not be controlled by RH, make moves and stuff. Now, after dismissal, is there anything that changes as far as, was he already unshackled? Is this like almost a
if it were me, I'd tell him to wait the 20 days. Let the thing turn into a final judgment. Me being overly conservative, I might even tell him to wait the 60 days past that to see if a notice of appeal gets filed. Even though I really honestly don't believe that that's a legitimate possibility. I mean, it's still a possibility. The door is still open. It's not entirely closed. But I want to see him return. I want to see him unshackled. I want to see him. If he wants to talk, I want him to talk. I'm tired of this. This is, talk about the biggest freedom of speech guy out there, and he's being stifled, right? I just want to see him be able to do whatever the hell he wants, whenever the hell he wants.
Does he have freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom of...
well, he doesn't really have a lot of freedom of movement right now if he's on a red notice. So he's got to fix that part. But again, I mean, like, he hired this superstar team here to defend a civil case. Like, why is everybody assuming he doesn't have a superstar team defending a criminal case? Of course he does, right? I mean, I don't know this for sure, but how could he not? Like, he's the thing that could actually put him away, like he's not going to worry about. No, of course he's got something going with that. Of course he's spending money on attorneys trying to fix that problem. And when the time is right, we'll find out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, do you think that, like, just like we saw the motion, or I guess the response, and we saw the motion dismissed, you think at some point we'll see something from something written by Finland's finest maybe.
Yeah, I would
Artists,
assume
whatever.
so. I would assume so. I have no idea what their procedure is there. I don't know if they do motions to dismiss and in their criminal courts. I have no idea. But you got to figure that there's been people hired and phone calls made by now, and whatever it's going to take is just what it's going to take.
Wow, exciting times.
It
You have
is.
to go. Question: was ruling with prejudice is that applicable to these
It,
prejudice?
it, it should be because lack of personal jurisdiction is generally with prejudice. So at the end of the 20 days, if the SEC doesn't file something, it should get entered as a final judgment with prejudice.
And
That's my guess.
just briefly, the difference between the two.
Without prejudice, you can file, you can refile. With prejudice, it's barred.
Don't ever bring that stuff in here again.
Yep. So that's what it is. Lots of things get filed without prejudice, or get dismissed without prejudice. Sometimes the most common reason is you file a complaint and you have 90 days to serve it, and it doesn't get served because the guy's hiding from you or whatever the case is. And the judge basically says, okay, by rule, I got to dismiss it. So it gets dismissed without prejudice. And you can refile that if you could find the dude and go serve him. That's a common reason for it. When you have something like the guy show up and you win a motion to dismiss, nothing's going to change the fact that nothing's going to change the fact that you don't have personal jurisdiction over the guy. So because that's essentially set in stone now, this should be with prejudice.
They're like, oh crap, he showed up.
Yeah, that'd be bad. I don't want to see his ass in this country for another 90 days.
Can live stream from
Wherever.
From wherever. Oh, win live stream def. That'd be good. Do you think you mentioned 20 days, 60 days? Do you think does this with the Finland case and stuff too? This could be speculation. This could be based on your experience or otherwise. But do you think we'll see a live stream? Do you think we'll see, him be able to freely do whatever he wants type of thing, even with the Finland case going on? Or do you think it's better to wait after, that is settled as well?
I don't know how to answer that because I don't know what the capabilities of the Finnish government are. Like, I mean, if they can track his location based on a stream, or they can force the streaming service to cough up like information on where he streamed from or something like that. I don't know the answer.
He's still tweeting, so couldn't they just do that to X?
Maybe. Like I don't know. Maybe he has somebody else tweeting on his behalf. He sends it to them or calls them or what, you know what I mean? There's a million ways you could do that, where he calls a guy in the Philippines today and he calls a guy in Greece tomorrow, and they put out tweets for him. I don't know. And it seems like a lot of extra work, but yeah, you're probably right. I mean, they could probably dive in and get more information, but
even if they did, they'll say they're like, oh, he's just in Finland, or he's wherever else. Like, is it just a matter of, hey, like, we think you did tax stuff. We think you.
Yeah,
so ridiculous. I can't even repeat it. Like, it's so dumb when I say it.
Yeah, he's been so careful about the way he does things stream wise. Like, he's putting out the 1 hour video or whatever. Clearly he has a reason to be cautious, and I don't know what that is, but. Maybe he knows something that we don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm sure he knows a lot of things that we don't know. But I'm happy to know when he put out that video that he's safe, he's bulletproof, whatever. So
nothing
I'm
can
sure
stop an ideal. His time has come.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fixing whatever the problem is. I mean, he doesn't seem to be the guy that runs away from a problem. He fixes them. He goes head on, right through them, right? So, there's no reason why I would ever think that he's not dealing with this Finnish bullshit head on too. He's got to be.
Do you think, I mean, kind of channeling the community who's you may have had, reservations about the ecosystem because of this. Again, people investing or not. You talked a little bit about that because of, why would you not? Because he's dealing with personal stuff. Can you talk just a little bit about that and why this piece, would it have had, if it would have went the other way, would it have put, the chain himself, like whatever, the alter egos, all that stuff, more in jeopardy in some way versus, this tax thing or whatever that's happened in Finland that they're trying to say? Like, is there a difference in way of like risk based on these two for an investor?
I'm not entirely sure I understand that question. Can you rephrase that just a little bit better?
I guess if you're an investor in the ecosystem and you're looking at both of these cases and you see that the SEC one got dismissed, maybe I guess you could speculate on the reasons you would have people have reservations about being an ecosystem or investing or otherwise, because they, if this went through, if this, the other side would have happened and, it would have lost or whatever, that would have put the PulseChain, would that have put all the side, even Richard's, personal stuff aside, all that and more in jeopardy than his, own separate thing that doesn't mention PulseChain, doesn't mention Hex, all that stuff on the Finland side?
Yeah, maybe. But if this case had moved forward, the SEC wasn't going to win it anyway. Like, again, even if they had stated enough facts to try to get through to the next stage, they're not winning at summary judgment. I always said that I thought this was a summary judgment case. And I thought it was pretty clear that the SEC doesn't have the goods and they're going to lose at summary judgment. That was the most likely outcome, at least in my opinion at the time. I'm super happy it worked out this way, but I guess I don't know.
Maybe asked another way, which one would you rather have dismissed?
This one.
Okay.
Oh yeah. 100 times out of 100.
Okay.
So.
Clairvoyant Herbs, do you believe the outcome would have been exactly the same if the political situation were different? For example, the Democrats won the administration.
Yep, 100%. It's exactly the same way. The law on personal jurisdiction has not changed in many years, since well before I went to law school. So it was analyzed. If you look at most of the cases that she cited too, a lot of them are recent, but they rely on principles that are older than that. So it may be, she may have cited a case from 2023, but it relies on a principle that's been out for 30 years. And if you dive into that case and then dive into the next case, you'll find out like that principle has been around for, since 1980, 1950, whatever. So the law, I think the law, what she decided the case on wouldn't have mattered who's in office.
Paul asked, does dismissal set precedents for future cases in SEC versus crypto abroad?
Nope. And interestingly enough, if you take a look at the decision right on the front page of it, it talks about being a memorandum decision and says not for publication. So she did not intend for this to be used as something that other cases could cite into.
So if the same thing, this very unique situation, but if there had been another, it can't be said at all. Like, I feel like.
Well, you can cite to it. You just can't rely on it as I don't know what the rule is in the Eastern District of New York. In Arizona, there's a lot of memorandum decisions that are put out. I'm allowed to notify the court of its existence, but I'm not supposed to rely on it. And I'm supposed to let them know that it is a memorandum decision so that they don't think it's binding on them and whatnot. So that's kind of generally the way memorandum decisions work. I'm not entirely sure how they do it in the Eastern District of New York or in the Second Circuit. Never had to learn it, but I would assume it's kind of pretty close to the same thing. So memorandum decisions basically they're put out for the most part where you're not basically deciding something new or really important that you expect others to be relying upon? Because of everything that she relied on to decide this case has existed in whole or in part for many years. It's not worth adding yet another case to the whole book of other cases. You're just kind of littering it with stuff that already exists instead of leaving room for something new and important. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And for people, people tuning in stuff too, halfway through, you missed a lot. Rewind, #replay game. But what exactly? So if you're looking again, maybe you're a passive, community member, you're just someone who put money into sacrifice phase, and you come back and you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? What do people need to know about what happened with this dismissal? Like, what is actually like the piece that you can take away and look, what can people look forward to now that this happened?
Well, I guess the first thing is, Richard Hart was right. So like, let's hashtag that. Right. Yeah, absolutely. He was right. The SEC was wrong. And there's another classic case of overreach by the SEC. And they got smacked down. Now, what that translates to financially, I have no idea. I'm not good at any of that shit. In fact, I don't even want to know. Like I've told people, let me know when we hit SAC and let me know when we hit 10x SAC. I'm not going to look at a chart. I don't give a shit. I don't want to know. Those are the only two metrics that I care about at the moment. So if somebody could just like tag me when those things happen, I'd be happy. So I got other things.
Press goes up.
Yeah, I want to know, like, I'll probably hear about it, but feel free to let me know just in case I ignore everybody else.
Well, it's kind of on the second part too. Like, is there any reason price shouldn't go up in the sphere of this type of stuff going on?
No, I don't really see everybody wants things like they think that price is going to go up based on like, I don't know, Coinbase listing, Binance listing, whatever. Well, I guess the question at this point is, all right, what's stopping somebody like Coinbase from listing it, right? It's been, even if let's say even if it was a security, like even if Pulse was a security, which we know it's not, but even if it was, we know the SEC doesn't have any jurisdiction over it. So who cares? Like if the SEC is suing Coinbase for selling a whole bunch of securities, which is what they were doing, this wouldn't, even if they wanted to continue on that stupid path against Coinbase, which luckily they didn't, but even if they wanted to, this wouldn't be one of the things that the SEC could add to that case, right? Because they don't have they can't regulate Pulse anymore. They don't have the ability. So no matter what they think about it, no matter what any other government thinks about it, the SEC has no ability to regulate Hex, Pulse, PulseX. So I don't know why that wouldn't be significant enough to see investor confidence, listings, all those things that we think should happen, that would, that normally make number go up. And I hope it does. I don't know how those things get decided.
So they had, the Hex AA where you could, turn ETH into Hex, I think for the first year of when Hex was out. You had the sacrifice phases with PulseChain and PulseX, where you could, sacrifice, send coins in and get points. And those points, eventually, hopefully everyone participated, turned into coins after launch, or I guess on testnet and stuff too. So sacrifice phases, AA. I mean, you said that they're not able to regulate Hex and PulseChain and all that stuff. Is this? But you also mentioned that this isn't something that could be cited as a precedent or a law or anything either. Does that mean, at least in this particular case for sacrifice phases and stuff and AA through decentralized contracts, you interact with to make your own coins and all the way that things work, that they're not able to be, I mean, they are DeFi, they are out of the purview of like the SEC?
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that Richard R products at this point, as of today, are outside the purview of the SEC.
Smells like victory to me.
It does. It was clean. It was, they took their shot and it didn't go in, and that's where we are.
Well, oh man, I love it. I love it. I love that you're here with us too, man. Mr. Herbst, killer instinct on these things.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. So I'm glad I can help people out. I'm glad people read the dumb shit I put up on the internet.
What do you what do you want to take us out on? Like, what is there anything from the case, or like, again, looking forward, I want to say forward-looking statements, and we're talking legal speak. Is there anything you want to, like, just express to the community that's like, hey, we
don't let anybody frame this as some sort of like, oh, the SEC dismissed it, because the SEC is dismissing everything for political reasons at the moment, changing leadership, a new direction, a new policy. Don't let anybody frame it that way. This is not the SEC doing this. Like, they voluntarily dismissed against Coinbase. They voluntarily dropped their case against or their investigation against Consensus and Uniswap. Richard beat them, and that is a significant thing that we shouldn't let anybody confuse that narrative, change that narrative, because people will still believe that Richard is a scammer, but the SEC dropped the case, so we never get to prove that in court. No, you don't get to prove it in court because you couldn't make the case. That's why the SEC tried to make that case and it came up short. And Richard beat them, and that's a very significant thing. It's a huge feather in the cap of Richard's team too, to be able to put on their resume that they successfully defended a crypto founder and got 100% win out of it. I mean, there's I don't even know how many people can actually say that.
I mean, it's I think it'll go down. Yeah, hopefully Richard will go down as a very, very great man, doing a lot of great things. And who knows in the future? I mean, there's all kinds of things that I think this is definitely a win, but I don't think it'd be the last one. I think there's a lot more winning to do.
Agreed.
I'm excited for it. Everyone,
let's all just enjoy this. Take the
soak it in.
It's a perfect timing too, right before the PulseChain conference. And
PulseChainTour.com.
Yeah,
check it out. I'll be there. Herbs will be there.
I'll see you there.
Coffee will be there.
Zenith, I see him there.
Zenith's in the chat. He'll be there as well.
I see him in there. Yep.
Yeah. If you haven't checked it out already, we talk about on the show a lot, but PulseChainTour.com. Big meetup in Vegas. Who knows? Will Richard live stream in? Will be the time? Dare I say that would be fun if that actually happened.
I'm going to bet against it, but I would not mind seeing it.
What's the Vegas odds for that? Probably not high, but it's okay. It's okay. We don't. We'll be all right. Everyone, that's all we got for you today.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Appreciate it.
Herbs, you messed it up. I'm just kidding.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say thanks for everybody showing up.
Who did that the other day? Somebody was on, and I was getting into it. It's always this dance, right? I'm always like, okay, I'm going to say it. Hopefully, I think that's the end. I don't have anything else to say. Zenith is famous for this. He'll come on and he'll be like, have a great show. At the end of it, he'll be like, no, but there's one more thing, and he'll start sharing it. And just I will
shut up right now so you can finish it.
No, it's so fun. No, I love it. I love it. Anyways, everyone, that's all we got for you today. Scivive and 5555. We are out.